All right, welcome back. So to review electoral process, compliance of political parties with the provisions of the Electoral Act, and then the role of the courts in the scheme of things. We're joined, as you may have seen in that welcoming slide, by Mr. Mike Igini, who is the resident electoral commissioner for Akwa Ibom State. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you, Shambali and Kayode, my very good sister, for having me.
So the elections have come and gone. I know that INEC usually they do their internal analysis. They have what they want to achieve, how they expect the elections to turn out. So from what you saw on ground so far, of course, compared to the previous elections, how do you think the processes, the planning played out on the day?
Thank you very much. Our people, institution must have something to build on. Nigerians will agree that even though we are not where we want to be, to INEC be one of the best election management body that will be conducting the most credible and free, fair election in our country. But what is incontestable is the fact that the kind of elections that we have witnessed since 2011, from the Jagad period up to this moment of the current leadership of Professor Mamu Yakubu, they are elections in a different class, different from what we used to have before. And what Ekiti, Edo, Anambra, Ondo, and the very recent one, Osun elections have shown, it is to the fact that whenever there's a harmony of interests as to the direction we want to go, it will reduce opportunistic behavior. And that shows clearly that no matter the challenges we are going through, the ill of democracy can only be cured by more democracy. In terms of the improvement that you have seen,
can there ever be a disharmony
on a incremental basis?
Mr. Mike, can there ever be a disharmony of interests?
Yes, of course. Because...
Sorry, you said when there's a harmony
when there is a harmony of interest, when there's a shared value.
Because people will definitely want to do what they want to do.
There must be. You see, that is at the heart of our disarray. Lack of shared vision. What is the role of law in our party democracy in terms of compliance? And so when we talk about harmony of interest, we must agree that there must be some benchmarks, some basic thresholds that must not be overlooked. Because around the world, there are three basic metrics in measuring good elections. Was there participation? Was there competition? Was there a legitimate outcome? Because in a democracy, effective power to lead must lie in due election where people are fully elected. And so, the point being made here is that, the job of an umpire is like that of a football coach. And that's why I don't want to be a coach. Because the victory of yesterday doesn't matter. It is today's match. If you don't win this match today, you're in trouble. So you could say that, but for human agency, issue about sabotage, negligence, and all of that, nobody's talking about beavers now.
So what were the...
Because the beavers that people talked about is working perfectly.
Who were the actors or factors that reduced opportunistic behavior in the Osun election, or maybe Ekiti as well, in recent times?
Clearly, generally speaking. You see, INEC is the most innovative and most improved public service delivery institution in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. All right?
According to who?
According to
you.
The evidence, which is empirical, around. I say this because if you look at what the commission has been doing from one election to other, there has been massive improvement in terms of processes, procedures, to deal with historical challenges of election service delivery in our country. But regrettably and tragically, there have not been a complementary change of behavior on the part of the political class. They prefer chaos to order. They thrive more in chaos. But in a strong society where the rule of law remains the graceful ornament to an ordered society, very many of the people that you find around should be cooling themselves somewhere in prison, not to be found in public space. Now, if you look at what has happened in Osun and all the states I've mentioned, no normal quarrel about beavers, you could see that the 2022 Electoral Act, and I must thank all Nigerians, I must thank the National Assembly, that despite the back and forth, the delays, that what this National Assembly has done in respect of the 2022 Electoral Act, and what we are beginning to see happen, will be written down in history, and so shall they be remembered. And that is why it is important here, for those who don't know this. People say, oh, why is he speaking on certain matters? Look, knowledge will forever govern ignorance. Part 1, Section 2 of the 2022 Electoral Act has enjoined the commission, the 36 state commissioners, the electoral officers, staff, or all those who work in INEC, not only to provide civic and voters education under Section 1, Part 2, but also to educate Nigerians on sound knowledge of democracy and democratic processes. And that is why I've advised that people should go and read this 2022 Electoral Act.
We'll look at some of those provisions soon. But
very well.
Before we move on from the conduct of the last elections, of which you say INEC did,
exceedingly well.
That's what you say. But do we expect INEC? Because when we raised the issue of voided votes yesterday, that's a huge figure compared to the previous ones. And so, does INEC normally sit back and say, wait a minute, how do we have this amount of voided votes, as opposed to just assuming what everybody else thinks, that, well, people just printed wrongly? Do you forensically look at those ballot papers? How do we know that, wait a minute, can't one official be deliberately voiding some of these votes to countermand people's chances or the opponent's chances or something like that? Look at the fingerprints or thumbprints and be sure that it's not the same. Does that ever happen?
Chamberlain, this goes to the issue about voters' education. And voters' education...
No, I'm talking about
No, I
official.
know. I am going to that point.
Okay.
Voters' education is a multi-stakeholder responsibility. The incident of void votes. What is a void vote? A void vote is a vote where on the ballot, a voter who perhaps do not understand the boxes with respect to each of the logo. You don't have name of candidate in the ballot. What you have is the logo. To what extent do the general public, voters, know the logo of the various political parties? Now, I would have brought a specimen of that here. But the point is that when you are doing a thumbprint and it crosses two parties, A and B, that constitutes a void vote. And most of the void vote we are having is a situation where when they are thumbprinting, they put their thumb crossing two logo of a political party. So the choice is not clear. That is one preeminent one that we have found.
That's one
and
part
that
of
does
it.
not need to require a complex forensic exercise. Because by looking at the ballot in the presence of the party agents, all right, you could say this is a void vote where the choice cannot be.
What I'm asking is, because you say that politicians or some of them thrive in chaos. Now, what stops, perhaps if I were an INEC official, or, and then assuming that someone tried to compromise me from one of those parties, and then while I'm trying to sort the votes or sort the ballots, I have ink on my thumb. So while I'm doing some of those things, I can just thumbprint either in the guise of mistakenly some of those ballots. And then it doesn't have just more than one thumbprint. It has more than, sorry, it has two.
Unfortunately, what you are talking about is a conjecture. It's an assumption. You do not be right
people
to
say they've seen ballots with
no,
two
that is not correct. Listen, every election, you have party agents. Once you have been accredited and issued ballot paper, you go to the cubicle, which is secret. Now, the way and manner it will be folded, you will have been taught the way it should be folded. Sometimes folding, that reminds me, could also lead to that. Wrong folding of the ballot paper, a certain manner, could now cross over to another party.
And then you have two thumbprints.
So we have two, right?
So how do you fold correctly?
Now, you are
you
taught.
Enclose?
You are taught how to fold it because there's a line. Okay? It will not cross over. And that is why it is folded. It is folded before it's given to the voter. So that once you go there, make your choice, you just use that format and put it on the box. So that really is not a major problem. But I think the fundamental issue, the reality of today, is the menace, what used to be a menace of vote buying that have assumed the level, the dimension of epidemic. That is the greatest thing that we need to deal with. As well as the issue you talked about, the increasing involvement of the courts in politics. What Jonathan Sumption, the retired Supreme Court Justice, called the expanding empire of the courts, which shows a clear indication of the failure of politics and the assumption that law can fill the void. And what is the implication of that to our judiciary? Those are the clear issues. So the first one, about vote buying. Vote buying constitutes a devaluation of the ballot as the best means of expression of the will of the people in a democracy. I know democracy in its traditional classical sense, as we all know, is a very fragile construct, extremely vulnerable. That is why it has to be protected. Now, vote buying has become a problem. And it has huge implications if we don't stop it now. First, the first implication of vote buying is that it's going to remove what they call performance politics. Because the opportunity, the benefit of an incumbent, for instance, is that once you have performed, in the next election, you should be rewarded on account of your performance. But because of vote buying, if not dealt with right away, and I'm going to make some suggestions today, calling on the National Assembly. Thank God we still have about 7 months to go. And we're going to make some suggestions here today. Now, if you don't stop that, there will be no performance anymore.
Who's
all
we,
that people
by the
need to
way?
do.
Who is we? If you said if we don't stop that, who is
the
we?
law? The law enforcement agencies. And
So,
we're going to go into that.
What about INEC?
First and foremost, INEC has it by way of administration. But I think, let me just close on the effect first. First, there will be no performance anymore because all you need to do is to keep money as much as possible. If the time comes, since somebody who's going to come in to challenge you is going to buy a vote, don't do any work anymore. Just keep money there. In fact, it will be cheaper for you to do that. Two, vote buying non-stop reinforces inequality in society because it will be a case of only the rich and the wealthy.
But
Number three, I just want to list all the areas of vote buying. Three, it will lead to what we call class bias policies. Class bias policies. Number four, there's what we call the equality of vote of all citizens. But when there is vote buying, it means that you are going to flood inequality into the quality of public franchise. These are four critical,
Mr.
that electoral historians have identified as responsible for the political economy of vote buying. Yeah.
Beyond the rhetorics, what's the goal of all the arrests that have been made so far, i.e. in the Ekiti election and in the Osun election? If we continue to make arrests and it doesn't make significant impact on the naming of political parties that are involved and impact on the outcome of the results itself, then you're going to come back here next year and continue talking about the ills of vote buying.
Thank you. And that is why we're very clear that, look, why are we always lamenting in our country? Is the book of lamentation written in the Bible because of Nigeria? Absolutely no. We have to deal with the issue. Because we cannot be in autarky of best practice around the world. Nigeria is not the first country that we have recorded incident of vote buying. In fact, some of the notorious countries that you see today, United Kingdom, United States of America, the former Soviet Union, Costa Rica, Latin America countries, they were all involved in that. But what happened? In 1856, the Australians gave to humanity the idea of secret balloting to deal with the issue about vote buying. There was resistance in England that only embraced it in 1872. And of course, America, which is very, very notorious, only embraced it in 1892. Now, the point here is that what did they do in England? Which is my prescription to National Assembly. As I commend you people, that even though you are also a victim of the current 2022 Electoral Act, because you didn't listen to some of the technical advice we gave here a year ago in June, right here.
A victim, the champion.
No. When I say a victim in the sense that some of them, if they listen to the statistics that we provided here since 2003 of the rate of attrition, and that direct primary is the best way to go, they will not be where we are today. But what did they do in England? In England, when it became a problem, for example, in 1832, in the borough of Stanford, alone, £5,000 was used to purchase 850 votes out of 1,000 register. What did they do? 1872, they came up with the Ballot Act. And so the first prescription, which I'm asking National Assembly to do this, before the 2023 election, so that you will continue to be remembered for having this profound Electoral Act that we're having today. Number one, is that in England, to deal with it, was that if you are caught buying votes through your party campaigner or influencer or campaign manager, and it's traceable to you, first, you are banned from participating in that election, as well as your political party, you are banned from participating in that election.
The political party?
Yes, you are banned from, you see, because political parties, you feed that candidate. Whoa. You are expected to hold, you are expected to be responsible for that. So, but first, the first stage, they were in two stages. Yeah. They dealt with the individual first. So you are banned. So I'm recommending here that...
So the current provisions don't provide for this stern punishment?
No, I'll come to that. But to give the historical background, so that when I said we are not in autarky, we are not in isolation, we must learn. Because every civilization has the primitive past. But Nigeria don't need to go through that whole horde again. So what happened? You were banned for 6 years in England. Then if you repeat that again, you could be banned for life. So Nigeria here... That's the individual. Individual will be banned for life. All right? You'll be banned for life. Then if a political party, you are also, first and foremost, it meant that you must feed responsible people to be on your platform. You could also be punished from feeding candidate in that particular election. But subsequently, you could feel that. So in Nigeria, we need to do that. Now,
so what are the current provisions? And
correct.
Where will these arrests lead us?
The entire section 114 to 129 under Part 7 of the 2022 Electoral Act, it clearly identifies acts, conduct that are considered as an anathema, that are totally prohibited. Particularly, Section 121 of the 2022 Electoral Act prohibit the act of buying, selling of vote. This is because, what is a vote? A vote is a public good. A vote is a citizen share of public franchise. It must not be sold. It must not be bought. In fact, even when there's no law, citizens should be punished for their moral failing, because selling a vote constitutes a betrayal of the principle of democracy.
There are a number of things that might make that difficult to apply.
Yes.
Because number one is that the courts, of course, they have a huge role to play here. Yes. If you catch someone on the day said to be buying votes, number one is that it's got to be caught, arrested, charged to court has to prove that, yes, that was indeed vote buying before the sanction is applied, isn't it?
Look, Chamberlain.
No, is that what you're...
Correct.
Okay.
And I give you an example, a practical example. In 2013, we have traveled to many parts of the world on election matter. In 2013 in Kenya, we were there for the 5th of March election. On that day, we were monitoring. The campaign manager of a senatorial candidate was caught with different envelopes containing monies that he was using to induce by voters.
Campaign manager.
Yes. He was arrested. He was arrested that same day. He was charged to court that same day in Kenya. The second day, he was convicted to 3 years imprisonment. And that election was for a period of 5 days. We were in Kenya.
That was a quick one. The second day.
So the point you raised here is very significant. Why is it that people who have been arrested over time on this matter, we do nothing about those people? Because the only way you can make that impact is to quickly arraign them, because the evidence is already there. In the United States of America, over 400 cases before the 2020 election. They were all determined before the takeoff of that election.
There are things we need to look at.
Why are we different here? Why are we different here?
So are you resigned to the fact that this current arrests are leading nowhere?
We are calling on them. It's not that they are leading nowhere. We are saying this is what you need to do right now to send a clear message to would-be persons.
There are certain provisions we need to look at
before
before we run out of time.
Yeah.
I was trying to make a point where you say, look, in Kenya, that's a campaign manager. Yes. But what we've seen here in the field is you can't see a campaign manager with that. They're smarter than that. Thugs, are the ones that carry out some of these things. And if a political party could sponsor a thug, and who goes and claims that he belongs to the other political party, so it then becomes difficult to prove that he is a member of that political party.
The problem is not about
So, in that particular scenario,
yes,
how do you do that? And can you actually put it in the laws here that you ban a political party? For instance, if it happens to be a ruling party, given all the influence they wield across board, how can that political party realistically be banned in this our climb here?
Where is the place of the rule of law in our democracy when you begin to talk about a ruling party? In 2015, when I was in Edo State, some members of the party said, PDP, that they were going to talk about federal might. I said, where? Edo State here. There will be no federal might, but the might of the people through the ballot that will determine what happens here. You see, I agree with you. The arrogance of I belong to either the ruling party at the state or at the federal is at the heart of the state of anomaly we find ourselves today. That when we advise people here that call lawyers, engage lawyers, they don't understand. Today, look at the issue about primaries and all that. How many of them recognize the fact that we are preventing them, rather than being candidate for election, they may end up being candidate for the prison? Why? Because look at section, I just told you, all the section dealing with offenses. We have offenses relating to section 114, registration, nomination. Under nomination, section 115, subsection D of the 2022 Electoral Act stipulates that no person shall obtain more than one form as a candidate for different election. And the offense for that, under subsection K, beyond the financial, you will go for 2 years imprisonment. So our advocacy advising people, don't do this. It's to prevent people from being candidate of prison rather than candidate for election.
This is concerning primaries,
primaries right now.
So Mr. Egini.
So some people are claiming that they participated in one election. At the same time, they fill 2 forms. Look at what the law is saying there. Ignorance of the law. It's not an excuse. 2 years imprisonment under subsection K. We are preventing them from being candidates of prison, and they are calling our names everywhere.
So clearly there are candidates that come to mind right now that may have fallen foul of this.
Very many of them. Very many of them. Very many of them.
So who's going to take this up?
That filled one form for a political party and then...
You see, that's one of the issues
enter for another political party.
Now, INEC, what INEC can do is what we are doing now. Point your attention to that. But you look at some of the provision in the Electoral Act. They don't tell you who should take it up.
Okay, so we'll go to
break. They don't even tell you.
So can INEC be the person to take them to court or the political party? So if INEC were to take them to court, can they be described as having descended into the arena or what? What is the way out? We'll talk about that when we come back and more. Don't go away. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, we've talked about Section 115 of the Electoral Act 2022, where it talks about offences that persons may commit, which they may run foul of for the party primaries. But the 115K, which Mr. Guinea referred to before we went to break, it says, signs, I'm quoting that now, signs a nomination paper consenting to be a candidate at an election, just a minute, commits an offense and is liable on conviction to a maximum term of imprisonment for 2 years. Now, this is what the Electoral Act 2022, Section 115, sub K says concerning party primaries. But the thing about all of this now, because I also have people who are writing and asking questions about different things, but looking through this section, you expect that, I mean, lawyers, candidates should know some of these things. But does this same clause, for instance, include an aspirant who lost or withdrew from a particular election and then switch over to another election for the purposes of nominations? Because they say, look, does this same clause imply concurrent holding of different nomination forms?
What is clear there is this. You know, there's a time for the sales of nomination forms. It will have closed. Now, what is even expected with respect to those under Section 31 who have withdrawn, all right, is for those who bought the form before to now be the one to participate in a new primary under Section 84, subsection 1, because the sales of forms had long closed. But I've watched on your television here people walking into their way to prison when they say that they bought 2 forms. Section 115, subsection D, prohibit that. In fact, subsection 3 of 115 says that even the attempt itself will be treated as the offense. Go and read it. It's there.
But it says in more than one constituency. So someone ran for president, and now the person is saying, I want to run for Senate.
No. Read it. It is disjunctive. It said, read it for Nigerians to read.
So the D says, signs a nomination paper or result form as a candidate in more than one constituency at the same election.
It's disjunctive. If you sign more than one form, because a state assembly election is a constituency. House of Reps is a constituency. Senatorial is a constituency. Governorship is a constituency. Presidential is one constituency. So if you bought a form and you bought 2 forms for 2 different constituencies at the same time as a candidate, disjunctive,
so are you saying
and all of that.
Those who fail to make it with their presidential aspiration are now resorting to Senate have run foul of this law?
No, if they claim that they bought the form, as we are hearing, reading the papers, they are run foul of the law already.
Or is there any other way to run for office without buying form?
I just told you that there's a period for the sales of forms.
So clearly they must have bought the form.
So that means they must have bought the forms at the same time.
That is it. You see, this whole noise, let me say this.
They also accuse you, before you just respond to it, they accuse you saying, look, INEC cannot, for instance, the law says it is the political parties that submit the names of their candidates.
Correct.
So they say that, how is it that we submit the names of our candidate, who we think is our person, and INEC says, no, you cannot do this kind of thing. So they feel that INEC is descending into the arena. We will be the ones to submit. If anybody is aggrieved about it, go challenge us in court.
Thank you very much. Democracy must be based on the rule of law. Well, if you want to ridicule, we are basically ridiculing our society. Section 84 says you must go for primaries. And that shall be monitored by INEC. The other section 29, that you now have to submit, which they are right, in submitting must be people who emerge from valid primaries. Now, when you are uploading to INEC, you are supposed to bring the particulars of those who went through that process. If you fail to do so, INEC can remind you, we are written to them, that look, the names that you sent are not the ones that are contained in our monitored, and of course, you've seen INEC have issued, statement to that effect. Look, let me tell you this. If you do not want noise making during the preparation of your pounded yam, don't buy the yam on credit. Those who crave the honor of a king, of a public office, must not break the law of the land. And for those who think that going to be saying all this you are saying and all that, look, that we should keep quiet, we will not keep quiet. Because in a congregation where everybody is possessed by the Holy Spirit, who will shout hallelujah? We must do the right thing. And that is the beauty of what you are saying today. Look at Oshun, look at all the... Are you saying that people are going to tribunal? We are going to end the business of tribunal in this country. So, National Assembly, a new law. This is what you are going to be remembered for. A candidate who is found in the 2023 election, because once nomination paper had been filed, once a date had been fixed for election, you cannot sell, give, gift, money, anything of any kind through that period. A new law. You will be banned for 5 years or 6 years, as the case may be. And when that again repeated, you'll be banned for life. It is because of the question of what you talk about, the theory about pressure and pain. People don't put their hands on fire. It's because of pain.
Okay, let's bring him out, but she's got some questions.
That is why we must stand tall and mighty in defense of democracy and the rule of law.
Magba?
Very interesting proverbs that Mr. Igini is sharing this morning. I don't know whether he's coined them originally, because I haven't heard that. I mean, like, if everyone is possessed by the Holy Spirit, who's left to shout hallelujah? So are you saying in this case that INEC has a duty, so to speak, to shout hallelujah, to be the one to point out if there is been any misdemeanor? If you say yes, the question is, what then is the place of withdrawal? I mean, the Electoral Act does also make provisions for withdrawal of candidates and replacing them, giving that power to, or that leeway to political parties. How is that supposed to happen?
Thank you, Mark. INEC is a regulator, the chief regulator of election in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to the exclusion of any other agency. Every other person can support us. Number two, Section 31 is statutory, and that of the case of death. In fact, may I just tell you this? Do you know that very many candidates who emerged from primary, they are in hiding now because of sudden death? I was called that somebody ran out to the country right now. Many of the candidates are hiding now because of sudden death. Because somebody called me and said, Guinea, we learned that in Nigeria that once you die, I know that you refer to one law about death. I said, no. They always say that in the case of death, we cannot change. Now, Section 31 you refer to, it is not automatic. When we don't have the time to go to the history of how we now got to Section 31 right now. But here is the point here. Section 31 says that if a person who has a match intends to withdraw, he must do so in writing, signed by himself, delivered by himself in person to his party, then sent to INEC. That is statutory. That doesn't mean that automatically the party will not just pick anybody. You still have to go back to Section 84, subsection 1. That's what most political parties are doing. But Mark, do you know what is going on now? Fortunately, I'm not in New York right now. I would have given you letters sent from by political parties to the commission in my office, stating that they intend to drop candidate, but that their letter will be submitted to us in due course. That's what they are saying. It shows that they don't want to respect the law. As a regulator, we will do what we need to do At best, you should be the one going to court. Because in Nigeria today, those who are doing the wrong thing are the ones challenging people to go to court. This is wrong. And that's why I call on my colleagues in the bench that, look, our profession, the rule of law that trips the tongue of every lawyer and non-educated lawyer, doesn't mean that every human problem or moral dilemma calls for legal solution. Okay. But as lawyers, we must stand tall and be a protector of the rule of law. How can we have a country where those who do the wrong thing are the ones first telling people that you can go to court? Look, they have done so much damage to the system. We are not ready to accept that. Okay. And that's why I'm of the view that even whenever the ceremony of a man is over, and you see the drummer man hanging around loosely, despite our grief, which will ask if you want to marry the widow. They have done too much damage, and we are asking them to allow the system to work.
So let me ask you to clarify for us. I mean, apart from Akwa Ibom, which you have, I mean, which is right in the public space, and you have been very categorical about, and the commission has also been very categorical about that. Have there been other examples which you have seen? Because placeholder was one of the controversial provisions which a number of political parties have tried to exploit, and people have said that, oh, INEC says there is no place for placeholders in our laws. Do you think that political parties are in risk of losing their tickets as a result of how they've gone about it?
There are no risk, because under the Constitution and the Electoral Act, the various presidential candidates, or maybe governorship and all that, they have done what the law required them to do. They never wrote a letter to INEC that they were putting people there as placeholder. No such letter. Because, as rightly stated by the Commission through our National Commissioner, Professor Sokoye, and other lawyers, there is no provision in the Electoral Act on the Constitution with respect to placeholder. However, because I said that we are not in autarky of what is happening around us, in the United States of America, there is a practice by governors in various states wherein, in the case of death of a legislator, a placeholder can be appointed by a governor. That is why, for the time being, and that's why a placeholder is defined as somebody appointed to a position temporarily with the understanding that he will not, as of right, contest for that position. So with respect to the presidential candidate in Nigeria, they have done what is right under Section 141. And in any case, if anybody is in doubt, go to Chapter 123, Section 11 of the Interpretation Act, which says clearly that inherent in the power to appoint is inherent to also...
We're winding down now. So just some quick sections in the law, which yes. Could you clarify? What is the difference between an aspirant and a candidate with respect to Section 84, which you cited?
Yes, an aspirant is someone who has bought form to participate in a primary process. It is when you have emerged that you become a candidate that can now come under Section 29 to be submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission. But again, more important, which is why I continue to commend the National Assembly, and the proposal we are putting forward right now should be taken very seriously in terms of banning people for life and banning them for a period, politicians who are involved in vote buying and all that, is the fact that what they have done with Section 51, we'll be having inconclusive election. You are not going to see inconclusive election again.
Who determines if a primary is valid?
Who determines whether who is primary is valid? The validity of a primary is determined by the law. Section 84, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act.
Who carries out that law? Who's meant to ensure that that law is maybe followed or at least adhered to?
Fine, that is the beauty of INEC coming in here.
So eventually INEC decides if a primary is done right or wrong.
No, the point is this. We monitor the process. Because first, primary is an activity of political party. The idea is to bring sanity. Issue about idea of internal party democracy. So when we monitor the process, they press the ballot paper and everything. Ours is to write the report of what we say, and they're going to be what they call joint report, so joint result.
So INEC doesn't have a right to say this primary was not conducted well.
No, Section 84, subsection 13 is very clear that INEC had power to reject when you have not complied with Section 29, subsection 1. However, this has been an issue. Why are you not exercising that power? There are two schools of thought. I belong to the first school of thought. The idea that allow political parties to do whatever they want to do. Well, that does not micromanage them. Okay. Let them do whatever they bring. But however, it is now be established. And look, because democracy is a fragile construct, extremely vulnerable to the extreme idea of my own idea is preferable, it should be monitored and should be protected. So that is why we now come in. Okay. Because as you have seen, Mark talked about Akwa Ibom. If you look at what is happening in Akwa Ibom, who were the, I mean, you saw the report all over yesterday that the Nigerian police have confirmed the forgery that took place. So we are in a country where people are no longer afraid of the court. People can even forge documents and go to the court of law.
Just respond to this one briefly.
On my colleagues in the bench.
If you can respond to this,
you must stand tall, as brief as you can, and the rule of law.
As brief as you can. Now, the Electoral Act requires political parties to notify INEC of their intent to conduct primary elections at least 21 days before the date of their convention. It also requires parties to submit their membership register.
Section 77.
That's at least 30 days before primary election.
Correct.
Now, they say the APC didn't meet the first requirement and the PDP failed the second requirement. Labour Party met both, and they are saying, well, documents at INEC Insider shared indicates that APC didn't notify INEC of its intent to conduct its primary election 21 days before that time. Section 82 of the Electoral Act says the penalty of this infraction is outright disqualification of the candidates of political parties. Section 82(1) of the Electoral Act 2022 says every political party shall give the commission at least 21 days notice. Now, assuming these scenarios were the case, will both political parties be disqualified?
You know, as an umpire, you don't respond to question of assumption. In fact, that's why I would have preferred to see some of the things that have been said here. I have not had the opportunity of seeing them. But what is expected is that the Constitution, the 2022 Electoral Act, must be adhered to so that we can have a society that we're proud of. But today, because the rule of law is preferable to the rule of individuals, no matter how magnanimous, that is the only way we can give meaning and purpose to the ballot as the best means of expression of the will of the people so that we can build a society where there will be opportunity for all and responsibility from all.
Mr. Mike Igini is a resident electoral commissioner for Akwa Ibom. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
We will be back in a moment. Don't go away.